Let me start with something small, something you've heard 1,000 times without thinking twice. You walk into the kitchen. The trash can is overflowing. Someone says, "Hey, the trash can is full." Now imagine the same moment, same kitchen, same overflowing trash, but the words change. "It would be really great if you could empty the trash, honey." Same information, same request, same reality, but notice what happens inside you. The first line feels like an observation, or maybe an accusation. The second feels like a favor, an invitation, maybe even appreciation in advance. Nothing changed except the frame. And yet, your reaction probably changed completely. That's the quiet power of framing. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. It's the lens you place over reality before handing it to someone else. And here's the uncomfortable truth. You don't experience reality directly. None of us do. You experience the version of reality that's been framed for you. By words, by tone, by context, by emphasis, by omission. Let me tell you a story that psychologists Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky once used to expose just how deep this goes. They asked people to imagine an epidemic. 600 lives were at stake. No drama, no music, just a decision. They presented two options. Option A, 200 people will be saved. Option B, there's a 33% chance that all 600 people will be saved and a 66% chance that no one will be saved. Most people chose option A. It felt safe, certain, concrete, a bird in the hand. Now here's where it gets unsettling. They took the same exact scenario, same numbers, same math, same outcomes, and they reframed it. Option A, 400 people will die. Option B, there's a 33% chance that no one will die, and a 66% chance that all 600 people will die. This time, most people chose option B. Same reality, same expected result, completely opposite decisions. Nothing changed except one word: saved versus died. Think about that for a moment. Your moral judgment, your risk tolerance, your decision-making, flipped entirely based on framing. This isn't stupidity, this is human wiring. Your brain reacts emotionally to gains and losses. Survival language triggers caution. Death language triggers risk-taking. The frame doesn't just describe reality, it creates the psychological environment in which you decide. And this happens to you every single day. Let me give you a simpler example. Imagine you're at a grocery store. Two labels sit side by side. 99% fat-free, 1% fat. Which one feels healthier? Be honest. Most people reach for the first one. Now here's the trick. They're identical. Same meat, same fat, same calories, same health impact. Your brain didn't analyze the numbers. It reacted to the framing. Fat-free feels like a win. Fat feels like a threat. It gets even better. Researchers tried again. 98% fat-free, 1% fat. This time, the so-called fat-free option actually contained more fat than the alternative. And people still chose it. Why? Because framing hijacks intuition. Once your brain commits to a positive frame, logic becomes optional. This is why marketing works. This is why politics works. This is why arguments escalate. This is why misunderstandings survive long after facts are clarified. Let's talk about a more subtle form of framing, something called glossing. Glossing is when uncomfortable realities are polished with prettier language. A falling stock price becomes a market correction. An overpriced acquisition becomes goodwill. A failed project becomes a learning experience. A firing becomes reassessing career priorities. A problem becomes a challenge. A challenge becomes an opportunity. Notice how nothing concrete changes, only the emotional temperature. And sometimes, glossing isn't just cosmetic, it's dangerous. Collateral damage, ethnic cleansing, enhanced interrogation. These phrases don't just soften reality, they anesthetize it. They allow people to tolerate things they might otherwise resist. Even heroism gets framed. A soldier dies because of a tragic mistake, bad weather, or poor planning, and the narrative becomes a fallen hero. And maybe he was heroic, but framing ensures that questions never follow the praise, and sometimes framing turns failure into triumph. Think about an emergency plane landing. When a plane lands safely on a river, it's celebrated as a miracle, a triumph of aviation. But a routine landing on a runway, what aviation is designed to do, barely registers. The extraordinary gets framed as success. The ordinary gets ignored. Now, let's talk about money, because framing thrives there. Have you ever looked closely at a financial product brochure? Look at the charts. They always seem to start at the lowest possible point. They always highlight the best performing years. They always zoom in just enough to create a beautiful upward curve. That's framing. The product didn't change. The risk didn't change. The volatility didn't change. Only the window you're allowed to see changed. And once your eyes are guided to optimism, your skepticism relaxes. Even something as simple as bread has been framed so powerfully that it once split an entire religion. To one group, bread was symbolic. To another, it was literal. Same object, same ritual, same material, different frame, different reality, different history. Framing doesn't just influence decisions, it creates worlds. And this is where things get personal. Think about used cars. When you shop for one, what do you notice? Low mileage, new tires, one careful owner. Those details frame your decision. You focus on them. You trust them. And while you're busy admiring the frame, you might overlook the engine noise, the brake wear, the transmission issues, the interior damage. The frame narrows your attention. And this isn't because you're careless, it's because your brain needs frames. You can't process everything, so you accept the structure that's handed to you. Had the salesman framed the car differently by emphasizing safety history, maintenance records, or accident reports, you might have walked away. Same car, different frame, different decision. Even stories rely on framing. Imagine a crime novel that opens by showing the murder in graphic detail on page 1. No mystery, no pacing, no suspense. It would be unbearable. The author withholds information, shifts perspectives, hints instead of reveals. That's framing, and it's what keeps you turning pages. Now here's the part most people miss. Framing doesn't only happen when others speak. You frame your own life constantly. You don't say, "I failed." You say, "It wasn't the right time." You don't say, "I'm afraid." You say, "I'm being cautious." You don't say, "I avoided the conversation." You say, "I didn't want to create drama." These frames protect your identity. They shape how you remember events, how you justify decisions, how you explain yourself to others and to yourself. And once a frame locks in, it's hard to escape. That's why arguments go nowhere. Two people can agree on facts and still fight endlessly, because they're living inside different frames. One hears criticism, the other hears concern. One hears control, the other hears responsibility. One hears rejection, the other hears boundaries. Same words, different frames, different emotional realities. So what do you do with this? First, you stop assuming that words are neutral. They're not. Every message is framed, even this one. Second, you learn to pause when something feels obvious, emotional, or compelling. Ask yourself, what's being emphasized? What's being downplayed? What's missing entirely? Third, you learn to reframe deliberately. If you want cooperation, frame requests as choices. If you want clarity, frame feedback as information, not judgment. If you want honesty, frame conversations as safe, not confrontational. And finally, you remember this. Reality doesn't arrive raw, it arrives packaged. And whoever controls the frame controls the experience. Once you see that, you stop being pushed around by tone, labels, and narratives. You start listening beneath the words, and that's when you regain power, not by speaking louder, but by seeing clearer.
Thanks for spending time in this. If this sparked a new way of thinking, hit like and subscribe to keep the ideas flowing. And don't forget, check the description for the links to the resources and the original books we used today. We'll see you in the next one.